You ever hear your daughter scream like she's about to be dragged into a nightmare? I did, and I swear to you, every sound in the world just stopped. I was standing barefoot on the porch of our ranch cabin, sipping burnt coffee from a chipped mug, when I saw them. Two men in orange utility vests, no logos, no names, just big, built like concrete, and walking like they owned the dirt beneath their boots. One had my 12-year-old daughter by the arm. The other popped the trunk of a black SUV with no plates. She looked back at me, her eyes. They weren't just scared, they were begging, like she thought I wouldn't come. You know that kind of fear that makes your stomach turn cold? That's what hit me. I dropped the mug, it shattered against the deck as I took the steps in one leap. "Get your hands off my daughter!" One of them turned, real calm, and said, "Sir, this is official Homeowner Association child safety enforcement." He held up a laminated piece of paper, like it meant something. Like I'd just nod and let him take my kid. "You got about 2 seconds to let go of her before I break that arm off and feed it to the coyotes," I snapped. He hesitated. The other one pulled something from his pocket. A stun gun. That's when I grabbed the old rusted breaker bar leaning against the porch column. I swung it like I was back on the field, and they scattered. The one holding her let go, nearly tripped over himself running. The SUV tore off down the gravel path, dust curling up like a ghost behind them. My hands were shaking when I pulled her close. She was crying, saying she didn't understand, saying they came out of nowhere and said they had permission. Thing is, I believed her, but I couldn't say the same about the people behind them. Let me back up. We'd moved into that ranch cabin after my wife passed. It was supposed to be peace, quiet, a place to start over. My daughter drew birds in her sketchbook, and I fixed things that didn't need fixing. It was survival, not living. And for a while, nobody bothered us, until the Homeowner Association decided we weren't aligned with community standards. At first, it was notes, then it was visits. They said the cabin looked too rustic, said my daughter, shouldn't be homeschooled without community oversight. I laughed it off, figured if I didn't feed the fire, it'd burn out. But that morning, that was gasoline. I called the sheriff, told them 2 men tried to abduct my daughter under the guise of some HOA directive. You know what the deputy said? "If they had official documentation, there's not much we can do, sir." Official documentation? I asked if they verified the men's identities. He said that wasn't their jurisdiction. It was a private civil matter. That's when it hit me. They were working with the HOA, or worse, being paid off. And if that's true, no one's coming to help us. I started making calls, digging. Most folks clammed up quick. But one guy, Jake, my neighbor down the ridge, we hadn't spoken in years, had a falling out after a hunting trip gone sideways. But he came by that afternoon, unannounced. "I heard what happened," he said, standing at the fence line like a man testing ice. "You need to see something." He handed me an envelope. Inside, photos. Kids, adults, all standing in front of the HOA building, some smiling, some looking like they didn't know the camera was there, and a note that read, "These are the ones who left," or got pushed. I looked at him. "What is this?" Jake just nodded toward the hills. "There's something going on, friend, and you ain't the first they've come for." You ever feel like the ground under your life just cracked? That's where I stood, holding those photos, feeling like I just opened a door to a room that wasn't meant to be seen. And that night, I realized something else. I wasn't going to wait for them to come back. I was going to them. You ever walk into a place knowing every eye is going to follow you, but you go in anyway? That was me the next morning, stepping into the Homeowner Association office like I owned the joint. Their HQ looked like someone tried to make a dentist's office feel like a fortress. White siding, steel door, fresh paint over rotted wood. The parking lot was full, but the building felt empty, too quiet, like it was listening. I walked up to the front desk. A woman in a pastel cardigan looked up from her keyboard like I'd just interrupted her birthday party. "I need to speak with whoever authorized a removal order on my daughter." She blinked. "I'm sorry. I'm not here for the weather. 2 men came to my property yesterday and tried to take my daughter. Said they were acting under your authority." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she forced a smile. "One moment, please." She disappeared behind a door marked personnel only. I stood there listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the tick of a wall clock that hadn't been set right since daylight savings. Then he came out, Martin Creel, chairman. If ambition had a smell, this guy reeked of it. Late 40s, pressed polo shirt, hair so perfect it looked drawn on. He smiled like he practiced it in a mirror. "Mr. Grayson, was it? Come on back, let's talk." He led me into a side office with blinds closed tight and walls bare like they were scared of hanging anything too honest. "I heard there was an unfortunate misunderstanding yesterday," he began, folding his hands. "You call attempted abduction a misunderstanding?" Now, he said, voice syrupy. "Let's not use inflammatory language. We had reports of potential endangerment, standard safety check, nothing more. You sent unmarked men in an unmarked car to grab a child. That's not a safety check. That's a snatch and run." He leaned forward. "You're off-grid, Mr. Grayson. No school registration, no community participation, no transparency. That raises flags." I stared at him. "You mean I'm not bending the knee to your little kingdom?" He didn't flinch. "You chose to move into a regulated community. That comes with responsibilities. What I do on my land with my family is my business." Martin smiled again, too slowly. "It used to be, but the community evolves. We have obligations now, and liabilities." Then he stood, walked over to a cabinet, and pulled out a manila folder, slid it across the desk. Inside were photos of me, my daughter, our cabin, a list of observed anomalies. One entry chilled me. Subject observed drawing disturbing images, signs of emotional instability. "She draws birds, ravens, and hawks. That's disturbing now?" "It's the pattern, not the content. We use predictive indicators." "You're profiling a kid with crayons." He didn't answer, just tapped the folder. "This is the documentation that protects us if something goes wrong." I stood. "If anything else happens to my daughter, anything, you'll wish you'd stuck to mailing fines about weeds." Martin stayed seated, but his voice followed me like a tick. "Mr. Grayson, you're making this harder than it has to be." On the way out, I caught the receptionist watching me through the glass. She looked afraid, not of me, of her own building. When I stepped back onto the porch at home, Jake was already there, leaning against the railing like he'd been waiting all morning. "You were right," I said, tossing the folder onto the table between us. He opened it. His eyes moved fast. Then he whistled low. "They got deeper files than I thought." "What do you mean?" He tapped a page. "That's not just HOA surveillance. That's third-party risk assessment software, military-grade pattern flagging." My stomach nodded. "How the hell does a homeowner association get its hands on that?" Jake shook his head. "They don't, unless someone's giving it to them." And that's when I realized this wasn't about the cabin, or even about my daughter. This was about control, and I'd just kicked the hornet's nest barefoot. Funny thing about hornet nests, if you kick one and just stand there, you deserve every sting. But if you watch close, real close, you'll see which way they fly. And that morning, I started watching. I spent the next 2 days tearing through every scrap of paperwork I'd ever ignored. Deeds, permits, utility bills, even the damn trash collection schedules. If they were building a case against me, I was going to build one right back. My daughter Ellie stayed close. She didn't draw much now, just sat by the window, watching the driveway like something was coming back. She'd flinch every time a car slowed by the gate. That hurt more than I'll admit. "You're not going back to that school," I told her. "Not until I figure out what's really going on." She nodded, but she didn't smile. Jake came by again. This time, he had something heavier than a folder. He had a plan. "You remember the communication tower up behind Hollow Ridge?" he asked, sipping coffee that'd been sitting too long on the burner. "Yeah, private repeater. Used to belong to that ham radio nut, Chuck." Jake nodded. "Still does, but he's not around much anymore, and his wife owes me a favor." "What are you thinking?" He leaned in. "If we piggyback a scanner and relay into their HOA command line, we might catch something. Live. Now, I'm no tech wizard, but I know how to wire a fuse box and patch a signal. We drove out that night, under cloud cover. The tower was still up, still wired. And Jake, he came ready. We rigged a mobile relay unit, patched into the HOA's encrypted communications line. Then we waited. The next afternoon, it paid off. A burst of static followed by a voice, male, clipped. Priority check on cabin 19B. Subject remains non-compliant, possible escalation. Proceed with Tier 2 protocol pending board approval. Cabin 19B. That was me. Jake hit record, but the line went dead a second later. Tier 2? I asked. He looked grim. If I had to guess, forced removal, not a bluff this time. We stared at the blinking light. I felt my chest tighten. Not with fear, not exactly. More like something harder. Rage with roots. I needed to know what Tier 2 really meant. And there was only one person left who might talk. Martha, the receptionist. She wasn't in the office the next day, or the one after, but on the third, I saw her at the pharmacy, clutching a paper bag like it might disappear. I followed her out, gentle. Martha. She turned fast, eyes wide, but then she saw it was me, and her shoulders sagged. I can't talk to you, she said quickly. I'm not here to make trouble. I'm here because I think they're planning to hurt my daughter. You have kids? She hesitated. 2, grown. Then you know what I'm feeling right now. She looked down, then reached into her purse and handed me a folded note. I never gave this to you. Inside, a printout. Internal HOA memo. Tier 2 included the phrase transitional custody, references to behavioral evaluation partners, and something called Project Nesting Ground. This isn't a homeowners group, I muttered. It's a damn intelligence op. Martha said nothing, but I could see it in her face. She knew more, a lot more. Back at the cabin, I spread everything across the kitchen table. Photos, recordings, the memo. Ellie stood behind me. Are we in danger? She asked. I looked up, lied through my teeth. No, baby, we're ready. But the truth? I was one step behind, and I knew it. And as the sun dipped low, a drone buzzed past the window. Close. Too close. I grabbed the shotgun from behind the fridge and walked out slow. The drone hovered, clicked once, then shot upward like a mosquito on fire. I'd seen surveillance. This wasn't surveillance. It was target acquisition. And I had a real bad feeling. They weren't just coming for me anymore. It's one thing to prepare for a fight. It's another when you realize the fight's already started and you're not the one swinging first. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in the floor, every rustle outside, I heard it, felt it. Like the walls were breathing with me, ready to jump. Ellie slept on the couch, curled up with my old army blanket. She used to say it smelled like campfire. Now, it just smelled like fear. By morning, the drone was back. Same model, same low buzz. I watched it from inside, tracked its arc over the tree line. This wasn't HOA security. This was reconnaissance. I called Jake. They're watching again? I'll come by, he said, but I got something first. You need to see it. When he pulled up, he didn't get out right away. Just sat in the truck, looking down at a folder on the passenger seat. I opened the door and grabbed it. It was a lease, not mine. A document signed 3 weeks ago, granting the Homeowner Association temporary operational rights over the Ridge property line, mine, under a quiet compliance clause buried in the regional charter. I hadn't signed it, but there was my name, a forged signature, my land reassigned. The clause allowed on-site action without owner notification in case of behavioral risk or refusal to engage. Jake looked at me. This is how they're getting inside the fence, legally. Who filed it? He pointed, a name I hadn't heard in years, Phil Dobson. My old neighbor, guy I once helped to dig his septic line. He moved out 2 years ago, sold his land to the HOA for conservation. I felt a heat build behind my ribs. They weren't just using paperwork, they were using ghosts. Where's Phil now? I asked. Jake didn't answer, but I saw it in his eyes. Wherever Phil was, he wasn't going to be answering questions. We set up that afternoon, cameras, motion lights. I pulled the generator from the barn and wired backup power to the house. If they cut utilities again, we'd still see them coming. That night, it started. 11:47 p.m., dogs barking from somewhere down the ridge. Then headlights, no engine, just lights sweeping slowly over the trees. I killed the porch light and grabbed the binoculars. 3 men, 2 in security gear, 1 in a blazer, all with earpieces. They stopped at the gate, talked, then turned and walked into the trees toward the western fence line. Jake whispered, "They're flanking." Ellie sat behind me, silent. She didn't ask questions anymore, just held the dog close. I reached into the cabinet and pulled out the old deer rifle, not loaded, just for weight, for the sound of the bolt racking. Sometimes fear is a better weapon than bullets. Then something unexpected. They didn't come to the house. Instead, they circled it, left small devices near the trees, one near the porch, one buried under a rock by the generator. Trackers or markers. Jake looked at me. "They're setting up for something bigger." And just like that, I snapped. I grabbed one of the markers, stomped into the clearing, and pitched it straight through the windshield of their parked SUV. It cracked like ice. I yelled into the woods, loud and sharp. "I see you. You want a war? Come out and say it." No one moved, not a damn sound. That silence, that's what told me the truth. This wasn't about legality or bylaws anymore. They weren't going to argue with me. They weren't going to knock on the door. They were going to wait until I slipped, until I was alone, until I was tired. And then they'd take her. I looked at Ellie. Her face was pale. Her eyes weren't scared. They were hollow. "You trust me?" I asked. She nodded. "Then tomorrow we disappear." Because whatever game they were playing, I wasn't going to let them finish it. We left before dawn, no goodbye notes, no lights, just packed what we could carry, sealed the cabin, and drove out through the back fire road that nobody but Jake and I knew existed. Ellie didn't say a word the whole time, just kept looking out the window like she was trying to memorize the trees. The world felt different, not freer, just quieter, like we'd slipped out the back of something that was still hunting us from the front. Jake stayed behind. He said someone had to make noise. He'd keep the decoys moving, leave a presence in the cabin, heat signatures, lights on timers, even a couple dogs from a rescue he worked with. "They'll think you're still there," he said. "And if they come for me, well, I've been waiting on a fight longer than you." We headed east. I knew a place. An old hunting shack deep in the canyon woods past Elkhorn. No cell service, no eyes, just trees thick enough to block a drone and a stream deep enough to drink from. We got there by sunset. The shack hadn't been used in years, but the locks still worked. I built a fire, and for the first time in a week, Ellie asked for food. That night, as she drifted to sleep, she whispered, "Is it going to be like this forever?" I didn't answer. Next morning, I hiked 2 miles to a ridge with just enough reception to make a call. Not to the police, not to a lawyer. To someone I hadn't spoken to in a decade. "Hey," I said, "you still owe me for that thing in Baton Rouge." Silence, then a sigh. "You don't call for 10 years and lead with that?" "Because I need something quiet, real quiet, a dig." I gave him the project name, Nesting Ground, told him what I knew. He was quiet a while longer, then said, "I'll send you what I find, but you're not going to like it." By evening, I had an email waiting at the only public library with working Wi-Fi between here and the next state. I opened the files on a burner laptop. What I saw nearly made me drop the damn thing. Nesting Ground wasn't just HOA overreach. It was a pilot program, funded through layered shell entities. Original concept, a behavioral control trial, targeting non-conforming households in developing communities. Test metrics included obedience to authority, social integration, and child adaptability. My daughter wasn't a concern. She was a data point. I felt something deep crack then, not snap, crack, like a fault line starting to shift. I sent the files to 3 people I still trusted, told them if they didn't hear from me in 48 hours, drop them everywhere. Next step, go back. Not to stay, to end it. Jake called that night. "They sniffed it out," he said, voice low. 3 cars, infrared scans, they know the cabin's cold. "You okay?" "I got time, but not much." "Buy me 2 days," I said. "Can give you one. Use it well." Ellie looked up from the fire when I walked in. "Are they coming?" "Not if I get to them first." She stared a long second, then nodded. "Don't let them touch my drawings." That hit me in the gut. Not "don't let them take me," not "don't get hurt." She said, "Don't let them touch what made her feel like herself." And just like that, I knew what I had to do. Not hide. Expose? You ever step into your old life like it's a crime scene? That's what it felt like pulling back up to the ranch. The gate had been cut. My porch was trashed. They'd broken in, ransacked everything, but not like thieves, like surgeons. Every drawer open, nothing stolen, just studied. The place reeked of cold coffee and old metal. Whoever they were, they'd taken their time. Jake was gone. His truck was still there, but the cabin he stayed in looked abandoned. One boot on the porch, a half-drunk beer on the railing, nothing else. No note, no blood, just silence, which, somehow, felt worse. I didn't have time to mourn. I had a window, maybe a few hours, so I used it. I planted 3 of my own markers, one at the gate, one inside the HOA building's exterior vent, and the last, well, that one I saved for something special. Then I did the one thing they didn't expect. I walked into the HOA building in broad daylight. Martha saw me first. Her eyes went wide. I gave her a look that said, "Don't." She looked down. Martin wasn't in his office. His assistant, some kid who looked like he failed out of real estate school, told me he was off-site for a compliance audit. Perfect. I left the envelope right there on his desk. No return address. No explanation. Inside, a flash drive. Contents? Every document I had on Nesting Ground. The fake signatures, the voice recordings, the memo Martha slipped me. And something new, an internal memo I'd intercepted from their secure server with Jake's scanner just days earlier. It outlined Phase 3, non-compliant extraction and environmental reset. I didn't need a dictionary to know what that meant. Now here's where it gets tricky. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted rupture, a split so deep they couldn't patch it. So I didn't send that drive to the sheriff, or the media, or the courts. I sent it to the members of the HOA board's families. Each spouse, each adult child, every in-law and cousin listed on any public record tied to them, with a single line in the message. Ask them about Project Nesting Ground, then ask who's next. By that evening, I started seeing the cracks. Cars pulling out of HOA HQ, people yelling in the parking lot, Martha texting me from a burner. They're imploding. Some board members had no idea. Good. But I wasn't done. Remember that last marker? I planted it on Martin's car, and through that, I tracked him. He wasn't at a conference. He was meeting someone at a lake house 2 counties over, black SUV out front, military cut, the kind of place people don't just stumble across. I got there after dark, watched from the trees, took photos, license plates, faces. Then I stepped into the open, let the camera flash once, twice. Martin came outside, furious. "You don't know what you're doing." I smiled. I know exactly what I'm doing. He tried to threaten. I didn't flinch. You ever think what happens when the people who trusted you realize you didn't just betray your community? You used your own family to cover your tracks? That shut him up. I turned and walked away. No fight, no bullets, just fear. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't need to burn them down. I just needed to let them destroy each other. The funny thing about a system built on fear, it doesn't collapse in fire, it rots in silence. And that's exactly what I let it do. Over the next week, the Homeowner Association fell apart from the inside out. Board members resigned quietly. Others tried to scrub their involvement, deleting emails, dodging questions. One even filed a restraining order against their own office. Families stopped showing up to HOA meetings. The community pool was padlocked. The lights at their headquarters stayed off. I didn't celebrate. I packed. Ellie and I didn't go back to the ranch. Not really. I let her walk the property one last time, sketchbook in hand. She stood in the same field she used to draw hawks from and whispered something I couldn't hear. I didn't ask her to repeat it. Some things are meant to stay between a girl and her ghosts. I sold the land to a conservation trust. Quiet sale, no names, no noise, just one condition. No development, no resale, no chainsaws. Let it breathe. Let it outlive all of us. Jake never turned up, but his dogs did. One morning, 2 of them were waiting on our porch at the hunting shack. Collars gone. Just sat there, like they'd followed a scent only they could trace. Ellie fed them chicken and named them after characters in her sketches. We settled north, somewhere cold, somewhere anonymous, somewhere the mail doesn't come with citations and no one cares how tall your grass gets. But I still have the folder, still have the drive, still have the list of names they scrubbed from the original nesting ground files, the ones they marked as inactive or non-compliant. And some nights, when the wind shifts, I swear I hear a car idling down the hill, but it always fades. You ever wonder what happens when someone stops running? They don't fight harder. They disappear smarter. That's what I chose. Because in a world full of watching eyes, silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. So if you're out there, listening, one of the ones who got the letter, who saw the footage, who realized the HOA wasn't a neighborhood group but a test ground, just know this. I'm not coming for you. I'm already inside. And if this story hit you somewhere real, hit that like button, drop a comment, and stay close. Because Karenology never sleeps. Not when families are on the line.